Undertale, the most popular indie game. Maybe. Undertale is a really interesting game and has been extremely popular for multiple years now. First released in 2015 on Steam, is an RPG inspired by one of my favorite games of all time, Earthbound. I'm very glad to say that I played Earthbound multiple years before I played Undertale. Earthbound was my favorite game of all time for years until I played Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that stole the crown. As for Undertale, I didn't even know what it really was until years after it released. Before then, I only knew of Sans, who had been flooding meme compilations for a very long time. Every time I watched memes in 2016, there would always be this skeleton with a blue flashing eye with this weird banger of a song playing, and I had absolutely no idea who or what he was, but he was flooding the internet like wildfire. And a few years later, I learned that he's from this game called Undertale, and he's known for being the hardest boss in the game. And after watching someone fight him on YouTube, yeah, it looks pretty hard. And fast forward to January of 2022, my sister gets a Switch Lite recently, and she bought Undertale on it. And at this point, I knew a bit more about Undertale, and it was on my list of games to buy, but once I saw that my sister got it, I knew now would be the perfect time to get it. And after I played it, I was shocked that I had never played this game until then. Man, it was such a vibe to listen to the music while it being in the middle of winter. Even my dad got invested into the game as well, and he played through all of the pacifist route. Sans ended up being his favorite character. Heh, shocker to nobody. Megalovania is of course his favorite song. Last time I played this game was way back in December last year, and my dad wanted to see the genocide route because he had never seen it before, and wanted to watch me fight Sans. It had been years since I fought him for the first time, so I replayed it with him and did it again, and that was the last time I played this game. Before then, yeah, it was somewhere in 2022 when I last played this game. But that's enough of my rambling. It's time to finally play this game once again. It has now been 10 years since this game first released, so let's see how well it holds up now. The game opens up explaining the story in the intro cutscene, and that long ago, there lived two races, humans and monsters, and war began against the two races, and the humans ended up winning, and they sealed the monsters underground with a powerful spell guarding the barrier. But many years later, there existed a mountain called Mount Ebot, or Ebot, however you say it, and legend has it that anyone who climbs this mountain never returns, and we see that a human climbed the mountain anyway, but they ended up tripping and falling down a hole that led to a ginormous cave, and the cutscene ends. Nothing else to do here except name the fallen human, and so I do exactly that, and we're immediately brought into gameplay. Since this is an RPG, there isn't much to do control-wise, but by walking around, we meet a flower who seems very friendly, and he teaches us how the game works. The battle system. This is the key element for RPGs. It's what keeps the genre unique gameplay-wise. Earthbound has rolling HP, so your health or psychic powers don't reach the number you lost until it rolls to that number instead of just losing it immediately. Mario and Luigi being able to completely avoid enemy attacks, meaning you can beat the entire game without taking damage, but doing that would mean you have to master every enemy's attacks, because a lot of them have very tricky timing. All of the Mario RPGs have unique ways of attacking as well, making it to where you have to time the button presses of the attacks well to get the best amount of damage possible. It's such a fun idea. So what does Undertale do differently? You control a heart, and you have to avoid enemy attacks that are shown in this box, meaning just like Mario and Luigi, you can also beat this entire game without taking damage, except the enemy patterns are the highlight of it all. Every enemy has multiple different attacks, and the way you have to avoid them all is very fun. But we're still not done with the tutorial, so let's check back on Flowey. He mentions that there's this thing called LV, which of course means level. However, in this game, LV stands for love, and love is shared through these friendliness pellets. So without hesitation, we collect them all. Huh. Never seen an RPG have collectibles inside a battle system. Oh. Luckily, we're saved by a monster who has a very kind heart. She introduces herself as Toriel, obviously being a shorter name for tutorial. And before I continue on, I would like to say that people who don't know about this game always say that the only thing that they do know is that the main character was raised by a goat, and that's not entirely true. You see, Toriel is based off of a goat, but no, she's a monster. All of the monsters have unique designs. They either look like actual monsters, or their designs are based off of real life animals. Toriel is a monster that's based off of a goat. So yeah, not a goat, just looks like a goat. Anyways, Toriel guides us through the ruins, showing that the place is full of puzzles. We encounter a dummy, and she shows you more about the battle system, and tells you to act friendly to it. You see, in Undertale, you have two options: attack enemies or spare enemies, which means you can beat the entire game by killing every enemy or sparing every enemy, hence the names Pacifist Route and Genocide Route. And obviously, I'm going to be doing Pacifist Route, and to spare enemies, you have to go to the Act option, and depending on who the enemy is, the options will change, but most of all, these options will stop enemies from wanting to fight you, and you can spare them. So we talk to the dummy, and nothing happens, but Toriel seems very proud of us. So now we continue back to the ruins and make progress, but we do end up encountering an enemy, and it's another monster. Apparently some of the monsters want to attack you, but simply acting will help us. Anyways, Toriel tells you to stay here while she attends some business, but obviously we decide to progress forward. She does give us a phone so that she can call us though, and she asks us whether we prefer cinnamon or butterscotch, and I like both, but I've had cinnamon way more in my life, so that's the one I pick. Anyways, more puzzles to solve by ourselves now, and more enemies appear that we spare, and we encounter our first boss, I guess you could say, but I don't think it really qualifies as a boss. This is just a ghost who is cautious about everything and starts crying, but you can cheer him up and eventually he calms down, and he ends up going home. But finally, we make it back to Toriel, and she's surprised that we made it back here ourselves, and she welcomes you to her home. She shows you your room, and we can finally get some sleep, and when we wake up, she makes us a pie. How nice. She's reading a book in the living room, and she talks about snails, but obviously we want to find our way back home. So she goes downstairs to the basement, and here, we get to see why she was so friendly in the first place. Apparently, we're not the first human who has fallen down here. Toriel is being overly protective and nice because she wants to save you. She's seen humans come here, leave, and die, and she mentions this guy named Asgore. She was going to destroy the exit, but since we desperately want out, she decides to see if we can prove that we're strong enough to survive. And before I say anything else, I want to highlight a very cool thing about this game. So I'm actually going to kill her, but don't worry, I saved before the fight. Okay, save file loaded. Okay, now I can talk about the boss fight. By pressing spare, she gets confused and wonders why you're only sparing her. And the more you do this, it'll eventually get to her mentally. And now she'll finally let you go, after one last hug. Okay, now you get to see why I killed her before. You see, this game does something special. It knows if you've loaded your save file to reduce something. So once we enter the next room and talk to Flowey, he notices you did exactly that, and that you couldn't bear the thought of killing her. It just shows how unique and funny this game is, and he mentions that he thought that he was the only one who could do that. meaning that apparently he also has his own save files. Again, it just shows how very unique this game is. It's so funny to me. And now, the game can finally start. Phew. All of this was just a tutorial? Man, it's gonna be a long video, isn't it? Alright, we move through the forest and see a shadowy figure behind us. And he requests a handshake. That's right, Sans, the funny skeleton who's actually very friendly. He mentions his brother, who desperately wants to see a human. And he's about to be here, so he tells you to hide behind this conveniently shaped lamp. And his brother, Papyrus, tells Sans to be prepared in case any humans come by. And after making some bad skeleton puns, Papyrus leaves and the coast is clear. We approach Sans and Papyrus and, he was ordered to capture any human he sees by the Royal Guard of the Underground. Let's just say that he isn't really good at doing so. He challenges us with a whole bunch of puzzles he put together, but he didn't really think his way through with some of them. We continue on and spare more monsters, and a lot of them in this area are dog-like, and they're all very friendly. One of them introduces a new type of attack, and it's blue. And all you have to do to avoid blue attacks is to stop moving. This will be very important later. But eventually, there are some real puzzles to do. They're nothing hard, but we do finally make it to Snowden, the local town in the underground. We can see that the monsters turned the underground into a cozy little home. There's so many different faces and everyone looks very happy down here. But eventually we finally did it. We finally come across Papyrus, and we can start our epic duel. Earlier, Sans mentioned an attack that Papyrus has that's known as the blue attack, and to watch out for it. So this fight should be pretty easy. When you're blue, your movement is limited, so now instead of being able to move freely, you can move forward or back and jump. But luckily this makes the boss fight feel more different than others. Apparently one of the things to do in the act list is, flirt? This makes Papyrus pretty excited about a future date, but he's gotta focus on the fight first. Alright, he's sparing me, so looks like we're done here. He is still interested in that date, though, so he says to meet him in Snowden, and once we meet up with him, he mentions the perfect place to go. We started the date, and there's a lot of funny stuff that happens here. But most importantly, we rack up these points, which makes Papyrus realize that we're much better at dating than he is. And it seems that this date was more of a play date, because before this, he showed us around in his house and room, and after this, he doesn't say anything romantical, so I guess this was just a play date after all. Anyways, we progress through the game and head over to a cave called Waterfall. But before that, we go to a place called Grillby's with Sans, and talk for a bit. But most importantly, he reveals his secret love for ketchup. Okay, now we head to the waterfall, and oh, this music, man. I haven't really talked about this game's soundtrack, but if you could already tell by the music that has been playing in this video, yeah, this soundtrack's amazing. If you've seen my other videos, you know I have different sections for stuff like soundtrack and graphics for the games I talk about, but since this is an RPG and is heavily story focused, that's what I'm mainly going to be talking about. I don't really have to talk about the soundtrack in this game because we all know that it's stupid good, and this is an indie RPG game, so it has a pixelated art style that looks really good in my opinion. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Toby Fox said himself that he thought the sprites didn't look good. And I can kind of see where he's coming from, but I think he did a good job for the most part. Anyways, we're at the waterfall now, and we see Papyrus talking to this armored knight, and he says that he didn't capture us, but he'll do whatever they ask. Oh yeah, Monster Kid. Forgot to talk about him. He's just a kid found in Snowdin, but sneaks out to try and meet Undyne. Who's Undyne? It can only be one person. Okay, well, since we're at the waterfall now, there's a lot to unpack here. Apparently the war started because monsters possess an incredible power if they take a human soul. A human soul and a monster soul are very different, and if a monster were to get their hands on a human soul, they will become a great beast. On the opposite side of things, a human cannot get a hold of a monster soul, because after a monster dies, their soul will disappear very shortly after. Meanwhile, a human soul lasts forever. Scared of this thought, the humans attacked the monsters, which started the war, and in the end, the humans were victorious, and they trapped the monsters underground with a magical spell. And King Asgore has a very big plan. Another thing to find in the waterfall is the Temi village, but sadly I couldn't find it when replaying this game. And there's Undyne chases us on a bridge until we're met at the dead end, and then she separates us. We wake up in a garbage dump, and it appears that everything down here is from the human world. We eventually come across another dummy and give it a good whack. Felt good. Looks like we made him mad. He attacks us and it looks like acting doesn't work, and he's completely invincible, so attacking him doesn't work either. But we do find out what does work, and once they hit him a lot, he fires them all, and resorts to dummy bots. And these do an even worse job, but eventually we're saved by Napstablook, the ghost from the ruins. He says we can go to his house if we want, or don't if we don't want to. But we do, and we just vibe out. After that, we continue forward, and oh, Undyne's here, and Undyne says, and right as Undyne's about to attack us, Monster Kid comes in and cheers you on for getting that close to Undyne until he wonders who Undyne is fighting exactly. And Undyne drags him out of the area, and once you go to the next room, he said that Undyne said to stay away from you and stuff. And then she comes in. Monster Kid trips and is hanging for dear life on the bridge, and Undyne watches as we save his life, and makes Monster Kid decide to be on our side instead of Undyne's. And in the next area, Undyne explains that the king has 6 human souls, and he just needs 1 more. And she was about to tell you the story behind all this, even though we already read it all. But she just goes absolutely crazy, and finally we fight her. This fight is cool, because she turns you green, and you can't move when you're green, but instead, you move a shield to block attacks. This is really cool and creative, and she does not hold back. Eventually she gives off a hint, and all you gotta do is run away. Keep doing this until you reach Hotland, which will overheat her, but there's some water nearby, so you can give it to her, and she is just in utter shock that you helped her. So she leaves, but while she was chasing us, Papyrus called us and said that he has a friend he wants us to meet. We go to their house, and looks pretty familiar, and Undyne is really not happy about it. We go inside, and Papyrus says he's gotta go to the bathroom, so he does exactly that. Now we are alone with Undyne, and she's really not happy about losing to you. But Papyrus has the bright idea of making it a challenge to be friends with you. A challenge. That immediately changes her mood from destroying you to befriending you, but still with a lot of aggression. And this results in a very funny moment where she offers food and drinks, and thanks to using way too much force and aggression, this all results in her house getting burned down. Yikes. She decided that she was going to try and fight you one more time, and without hesitation, we use a full force attack. She felt bad, so she ended up stopping. Even Undyne has a kind heart. Okay, we can head back to Hotland, and we come across a laboratory, and meet a new character named Alphys, the overly cautious, nerdy, and Simpson-looking monster. Apparently she has been watching you on your journey this entire time, and had the intention that the other monsters had, but ended up rooting for you the more you progressed. And she mentioned a robot named Metaton she made that was programmed to act very violently against humans. And she tried to remove those features, but accidentally made it worse. But luckily, he shouldn't be coming here anytime soon. Meet my favorite character in the game, Metaton, the live show loving robot, who is completely invincible. He attacks with quizzes, some being quite humorous actually, while others being way too rigged, but luckily Alphys knows all the answers, so she helps you out with hand shapes of the correct answers. She may know the answers a little bit too well though. But after completing enough quizzes, Metaton claims that this was just a pilot episode, and will be back with more drama, romance, and bloodshed. Alphys asks for your phone number and realizes that it's older than dinosaur dirt. She modified it to allow texting and allowed it to be part of the underground social network, but she forgets she does that really soon after. And now, we can finally continue on to Hotland. And this place has a lot of traps and puzzles. And oh my gosh, again, that music! This place is also filled with a lot of traps. Luckily, Alphys helps us out by hacking into the traps by shutting them off, or telling you what the lasers will do. Remember how you have to stop at the blue objects? Well, with orange objects, you have to keep moving, and the puzzles here to open doors are pretty easy, all things considered. And then we enter a dark room. Alphys hacks the light on, and oh no! Mettaton is here yet again. And it looks like we've got to bake a cake, but Mettaton forgot a key ingredient. So I guess we have to get a vegan ingredient now. Alphys calls us and says that there is a jetpack button on the phone for whatever reason. So we press it and we get to fly up and snag it before time runs out. Well, I guess we don't need the substitution anymore. In the distance, we see the core, and Alphys says that the barrier to the underground is that way. A few puzzles, traps, and a gay interaction later, we come across Mettaton again. And this time, we have to pick out a random object that is in the room. Ooh, a present. Let's pick this one. And there's a bomb inside. And everything else was also a bomb. After defusing them all, he flees again, and Alphys begins to be more confident about herself. And after progressing more, we come across a place full of spiderwebs, and spiders that overcharge for simple recovery items. Ah, Muffet. The boss that holds one of the most iconic songs in this entire game. She turns you purple, and when you're purple, you can only move in these straight lines, limiting your movement. This is definitely one of the most fun bosses in the entire game. Eventually, one of her spider friends gives her a letter that I actually did buy some of the spider products in the ruins. Forgot to mention that part. Knowing we have great taste, she spares us and we are free. This is probably the funniest part of the whole game. Oh yeah, that puzzle didn't work out for Papyrus in the beginning. Mettaton activates it, and we end up having to do it ourselves. And if we don't get through, we'll get burned. And I don't know if it's even possible to get through this or not, But it doesn't matter because Alphys was able to disable the flames right before they reached us. But there's something awfully sketchy about this all. Anyways, Mettaton decides to attack you himself. Alphys tells you about a switch to press on the phone, and this turns you yellow. Again, something feels off about this, but he escapes and we make it to the hotel. But first, we go eat with Sans again, and he hints on something pretty scary. He also mentions a time when he went deep into the woods and came across a big structure, and when he knocked, he heard a female voice. And long story short, they kept telling each other puns, but after that, we make it to the core, and there's a lot more traps and very powerful monsters, but we're able to spare them all, deactivate the traps, and head for the end of the core, where Mettaton is waiting. He locks the door behind us, explaining that all the traps and stuff were all staged. These traps were purposely set up for Alphys to deactivate to make it seem like she's actually hacking into them, but she was not. And even where we're standing, Alphys is supposed to come through and act like she's helping us, but Mettaton locked the door so that doesn't happen, and is going to try and kill you by himself, and is going to fight you live on TV as his final performance. He wasn't lying about it all being staged, because the yellow attack just doesn't work on him like how it did earlier. But Alphys calls us and says that there's a switch on Mettaton's back, and it's the only way we can defeat him. But it's also a work in progress for Mettaton himself. Though he can be defeated this way, and also transform Mettaton into his true form. Oh no.
Oh yes.
I will never forget how shocked I was when I first saw this. This was such a surprise moment. This fight takes place live in the underground, and you have to pose with Mettaton to increase the view count, and we have to try and reach 10,000 views. But Mettaton is not going to make it easy for us. We finally make it to 10,000 views, and he lets one of the viewers to call him live. And once he was on the call, he realized that this being the last show was all a big mistake, and wants more call requests, and decides that he's not going to go to the surface just yet, and stay down here since he is all that the monsters have. Alphys walks in and panics a bit about Mettaton, but is relieved to see that he's just out of batteries, so we finally make it to the end of the core, and Alphys is acting kind of strange. And then she reveals that you can't leave the underground on your own, because a human soul alone isn't powerful enough to cross the barrier. So if you want to go back to the surface, you'll have to kill Asgore and take his soul to cross the barrier before it disappears. So we move forward, and this place looks a lot like Toriel's home. And the monsters here aren't going to fight you, but rather they're all going to tell you a story from long ago. Many years ago, a human fell down here. The first human to ever fall down here ever since the monsters got sealed in the underground. The king and queen's son, Azrael, finds the human who fell and takes them. And over time, the human and Azrael, as well as his parents, became like family, and raised the human as one of their own. However, one day, the human became very ill, and unfortunately ended up passing away. Before dying though, the human had one last request for Asriel, and that was to see the flowers in their village. And after they died, Asriel absorbed the human soul and crossed the barrier to the human world, and goes to a nearby village where he saw a flower garden right in the center. However, the townsfolk saw Asriel in his menacing new body carrying the lifeless human and began attacking him. Asriel didn't harm a single one of them, and after placing the human in the garden, he rushed back to the barrier, wounded badly. And when he got back home, he collapsed and unfortunately also died. This meant that both the king and the queen's children died on the same day. Since the humans killed their son, the king decided any human who comes down here will have to be killed, so that he can gather enough souls to not only cross the barrier, but to shatter it once and for all, and strike revenge on the humans, to start the war from long ago all over again. The queen, on the other hand, was really displeased at the king's violent decisions, left him, and disappeared far, far away from him in the underground. And if you haven't already figured it out, the king and queen is none other than Toriel, who we met in the ruins, and Asgore, who we are really close to meeting now. First though, we have to talk to Sans, and he judges us based on our actions. We haven't killed a singular monster, so he lets us go, and wishes us luck. To the right of Asgore's throne room, there is a basement with a bunch of caskets, and the first one has our name labeled, and is empty. So we make it to the throne room, and wow, it's extremely peaceful here. And there he is, King Asgore, and is acting very nice. Asgore's reputation has definitely changed over the years, to say the least, but he knows why you're here, and again, is very polite about everything. When the other monsters mention Asgore, they always say he's kind-hearted and stuff, so despite planning revenge on all the humans, he's a really nice guy at heart. So here we are, the barrier guarding the surface. He asks us if we're ready, and brings up the other souls he's collected, and the final battle can finally start. It looks like we are entirely forced to fight, but there is something we can do. If you bring the pie that Toriel made in the beginning all the way to Asgore's fight and eat it in front of his face, it will drop his offense and defense. Talk about evil. A lot of Asgore's attacks look familiar, but this is no time to think about that. It's time to finally get back to the surface. After defeating him, Asgore decides to let you go ahead and kill him, to take his soul and cross the barrier. But of course, we decide not to. Asgore is extremely shocked about this, and swears that he will protect you, and will raise you along with Toriel, That is, if she changes her mind about him. But then... Flowey, just why? Flowey takes the souls that Asgore kept and becomes your best nightmare. Oh yeah, he actually crashes the game when he does this. I actually didn't know he crashed the game because I've only played the Switch version and it doesn't crash at all whenever you do this, so... That was just something that shocked me whenever I was playing this. We go to our save file and see that it is absolutely destroyed now. And he reveals how scary a monster can be with more than one soul. This is certainly something to look at. This is Omega Flowey, by far the most interesting boss fight to say the least. He does a wide variety of attacks, and I just can't with this boss dude. This is just too funny. Like, what is going on? How do you explain something like this to like your grandma? If you survive long enough, which, yeah, when I first played this, I didn't think it was even possible to survive this, the attack option will appear, but it does barely anything. If we survive a bit longer though, a warning sign will appear, and we're taken to a unique type of attack that is from one of the souls, but when we call for help when acting, the attack turns into healable objects. Do that 5 more times and you win. However, there's something interesting about these kinds of attacks specifically. So in Undertale and pretty much every RPG I can think of, you can find equipable objects that raise your offense and defense. However, in Undertale specifically, these actually belong to some people, and in this battle, we see who they do belong to. And after we get past the 6th soul's attack, that's a tongue twister, I'm sorry, they start encouraging us, and then we can finally defeat him. Oh yeah, forgot. He has his own save files. But luckily we freed the souls from his grasp, and the souls stop him from killing us, and we're able to finally defeat him. And despite everything Flowey has done to us, we're of course going to spare him. Flowey is shocked that we're sparing him, and threatens to kill everyone we met if we do spare him. But if we keep spamming spare, he gets emotional and doesn't understand why we're being so kind, until he finally runs away, and we can finally make our way to the barrier. Somehow. There certainly wasn't another monster soul laying around, so I wonder what gives. Oh well, the game's over, and it was a very fun time. Sans calls you telling you how everyone is ever since you left. But none of that is important, because once we go back to our save file, Flowey stops by and he isn't going to attack us, and mentions that we could have been better friends with Alphys. So I guess we should go back and check on her. We're back on our save file before we fought Asgore. But on our way to Hotland, Undyne requests us a favor, and to meet her in Snowdin by Papyrus's house. So we go there, and she gives us a letter to send to Alphys. So once we head over there, we slip it through underneath the door, and Alphys is just not ready for another letter because she's been getting a lot lately. But she decides to open this one, and it was actually a love letter. Turns out these guys weren't the only ones, and since Undyne didn't sign it, Alphys thinks that it's from us. This is a bit weird. we go to the Dumpin' Waterfall and she asks us if we like anime. You guys already saw my wallpaper, so that's an easy yes. Eventually Undyne does come by and fix the situation, but that's enough of that. It's time to regress to the game. Alfie felt bad for thinking the letter was from us, so she decided to be more open about herself and who she truly is. So she leaves a note by the bathroom telling us to go inside, and we see that there's actually an elevator in here. And going down it, doesn't go too well, but once we're down here, we see the true laboratory, and there's signs that are documents of Alphys' research. Apparently Asgore gave Alphys permission to do research on the human souls he possessed, to see why they last so long after a person's death. And upon doing research, Alphys discovers this thing that she calls determination. You know, that fancy word that has been popping up every time you save? Apparently it's what makes a human soul so powerful. Monsters, on the other hand, have very little determination. So Alphys got to work. Asgore asked everyone in the underground if any of their family members have fallen down recently. In other words, on the brink of death, I think? Anyways, they gave her the bodies, and her plan was to extract determination from the human souls into the souls of the unconscious monsters. And after doing that, nothing happens. But then the bodies woke up and started walking around like nothing happened. Alphys thought they had worked it all along and planned to return the bodies soon, but as time went on, their bodies began to melt. Not completely, but enough for them to look deformed. But they were still completely conscious and were getting their memories back, but they were still deformed and didn't act like how they used to. Alphys kept getting letters and phone calls from the families of the bodies asking where they were and if they're okay. But she couldn't take it anymore and stopped reading them when more and more came in. But while we're down here, we realize that these monsters are also pretty nice. And when we go into this room, we see a VHS player and tapes that have pitch black videos of Azrael and the first human playing together. But Azrael, for whatever reason, calls the human by the name you gave the main character. Anyways, we get all the keys and head to the door that was unlocked, and we were about to be attacked by more of these monsters, but Alphys explains that they were just hungry. But since she's more confident about herself, she's going to tell their families what happened to them and take them back home herself. Great for her. So now we can progress and head back to Asgore. Oh, Toriel's here. She decided to stop the fight because she knew that even Asgore deserves mercy too, even though she clearly still isn't happy with him. And eventually, more of your friends come by and encourage you to stay with them instead of go to the surface, because you befriended everyone, and leaving them here will just result in you missing them. But this reminds Alphys. Papyrus told everyone to come here except Toriel. She came here by her own terms. So why did Papyrus tell everyone else to come here? And he explains that a tiny flower told him to bring everyone here. Flowey grasps everyone and got a hold of the other souls, and claims that he'll use the souls of your friends as well, and beats you to smithereens. But just as you're about to get hit by the final blow, Toriel deflects Flowey's last attack, and attempts to kill you again, but all of your friends continue to protect you, until more of the monsters you befriend come to help you, and this makes Flowey worried. But then he absorbs all of the monster's souls, and the souls from the other humans, and after all this time, it is revealed that Flowey was none other than Azrael Dreamer, Asgore and Toriel's son, this entire time. And finally, the final battle is at hand, with man versus God. Eventually, Azrael calms down and reveals that the name you gave to the character is actually the name of the first human that fell, and asks for our actual name. This character's name is Frisk. No idea what that name means, but Azrael uses the power of the other souls to shatter the barrier and returns the souls to whom they belong. And now, he's soon going to turn back into a flower and requests us to take care of his mom and dad. And before we end the game, we can talk to everyone here, but the most important thing is that Toriel got a new phone and gets Sans' number, and despite being right next to each other, they're texting each other puns. Anyways, we head our way to the surface, and for the first time, the monsters get to see the sun. Everyone decides to go enjoy their new life, but Toriel decides to stay with you, and asks if you have anywhere to go. But we decide to stay here with her, and Toriel becomes our new adoptive parent, thus ending Undertale. And 10 years later, this game is still really, really good. I wish I had played it sooner, because if I did, I would have had a nostalgic attachment to this game. But sadly I don't. But we aren't done with this game just yet. Oh no, I haven't even got to talk about the genocide route. Don't worry, it's not canon, there's just 2 bosses I want to talk about. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. There are some dialogue and even gameplay changes. Yeah, in order to complete genocide route, you have to kill every single monster in the underground. Not just every monster you see, but every monster, period. Meaning you have to grind and grind and grind in the 4 main areas until there are no more left. This is an extremely long and sadly boring process, but in return, the game speeds things up, making stuff like puzzles completely gone. All the bosses are very easy one-shots too. So why would anyone do this? Well, it's simple actually, for 2 hard but really fun bosses. The first one being very, very cool. You see, instead of Monster Kid being told to stay away from you, he's told that you're extremely dangerous, but is brave enough to attack you himself. And right as you deal the blow to him, Undyne immediately jumps forward to protect his life, and as she starts dying, she tells Monster Kid to please listen to her next time, and Undyne finally starts to die. At least we thought. Apparently she doesn't give up just yet, and she wants to challenge your determination, claiming her determination is stronger, and this results in Genocide Route's first boss, Undyne the Undying. Now there's only one more boss. Heading our way to Asgore's throne room, Flowey decides to follow us, and he says that after he died, he became a flower for some weird reason. Asgore found him crying as a flower, and tried to comfort him, but Flowey didn't feel anything for some reason. After a while, he just couldn't feel comfortable anymore, so he left home, far away, to the ruins. But the more he talked to you, the more nervous he felt, until he began trembling. But that doesn't matter, because we're at the Judgment Hall now, where Sans is waiting, and you all know what's about to happen here. After we beat Sans, he heads to Grillby's, and we make our way to Asgore, and Flowey kills him for us, proving that he would be helpful towards you. But he panics, because he knows you're more powerful than he is, and that you're a bigger psycho than he is. After that, we meet another human who is actually the first human who failed here. And I don't know what happens here. I don't know if you killed them or if I killed them. But it doesn't matter because that's the end of the genocide route. And yeah, that's Undertale. And just wow. I feel like I enjoy the game more with these two playthroughs. I don't even have 100 hours in this game. I pretty much only played it in 2022. And I never played it again outside of showing my dad genocide route. Replaying both routes for this game was very fun, and I even got a refresher of the story, something I felt was needed. Because this story was a lot better than I remember it being. Undertale is a truly special game, and this game would go on to be a major success. And a few years after this game released, Toby Fox would release the game called Deltarune. Well, the first chapter of it. Apparently Deltarune has been in development for longer than Undertale, and is still in development. I still need to play chapter 3 and 4. But yeah, I give this game a 9.0 out of 10. Has its flaws, but is really good for the most part. And with that, I have talked about everything I wanted to with this game. Thanks for watching.